Happy Friday, folks. Welcome to the pre-show. As always, those of you who might be new to the broadcast, we don't go live on the radio until 4 minutes and 25 seconds after the top of the hour. So you get to experience just the setting up of the show. I just like to get here, say hi, make sure we're set up, make sure everything's on, etc., etc., etc. Name that movie, or stage play, or musical. So, whichever you prefer. Hey, Matthew Sainsbury, good to see you. Spirit Heart, Gods and Goddesses, good to see you. I didn't fall asleep last night. Was entertaining guests. I'm glad to have you here tonight, though. Always nice to have you here. You know, there's something about it. It's your name, your moniker, your spirit. It's nice having you here. You always make me feel good when I see you here. So, Dave Potter, Uncle Dave, good to see you. Uncle Dave says hi, bro. Hi. So, thrown together rather quickly. We've been moving all day and doing stuff and loading trailers and junk, getting ourselves ready. We're going to be doing that all weekend. That is our holiday weekend. What's your holiday weekend plans? Water. Cheers. So, there we go. Now we can just kind of sit and relax for a few minutes. So I didn't get to change my sweaty shirt. Look at that. Well, that's dirt. That's not sweat stains. You might think it is, but it's not. It's just dirt. So, Spirit Heart says, I've witnessed many things I can't explain. I'm all in. Fantastic. Stick around for the captain's cabin, too, if you can, if it's not too late for you. After the show, it's our post-show. And you can maybe even join in the discussion. Maybe you can even call in. Ugh, I'm just looking. I haven't even... All I did was go whoosh, put water in my hair and swooshed it all back. My sweaty sparse mop on the top of my head. What do we got? We got about a minute and a half, and we go live. Oh, see myself on the monitor. Sorry, folks. It's as good as it gets tonight. Hey, Susie Q. Good to see you. Steve Clark. Nice to see you here. Grumpy Stack. Yo, yo, yo. I'm at Jellystone RV Park here in Louisiana. Is that what you do on Labor Day? Jellystone Park? Hey, boo-boo. Yogi. I used to go do a fairly good Yogi Bear when I was younger. Haven't had to for years. So, less than a minute, and we go live. All right. Went to the doctor today, had my appointment, doing all right. I'm still good. Things are good. For those of you who mentioned it yesterday, I was a little dehydrated. They think. They can't find any other thing. They did all kinds of heart tests and the dizziness and all of that. And they thought I might have been a little, dehydrated, but they're still not sure because it's weird. Stand by.
Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with two T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, happy Friday evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this, my show, the Intrepid radio program, right here on Odyssey Radio. Oh, and I'm Scotty Roberts. I'm your host. And Odyssey Radio, ODYSY radio.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey. If you are listening to the show over at Odyssey, that's great. That's where we play this show in its audio format from the radio station, audio only. Now, if you want to see the show and maybe join the chat rooms, you can come over to one of the four places we have it on video simulcast. 3 of them on YouTube. 1 of them on 3 on Facebook. I do that every night. Same mistake every night. 3 on Facebook. 1 of them over on YouTube. It's my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And while you're here, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. That thumbs up goes into the algorithm that helps this show in its placement and its findability over on YouTube. And you can also, if you are not a member of the channel, hit the join button. You'll find out 3 ways you can be a member. So good evening to everybody over in the chat room. We always have a little bit more time to say hello in the pre-show. And I want to say you can't really tell too much, but apologize for my appearance. You used to not have to worry about your appearance on radio, but we've been moving all day and sweating and moving boxes and stuff like that. And so I didn't even change out of my sweaty shirt, which had cooled off in the last half hour. And so I didn't think about it. Hopefully not too stinky. It doesn't matter for radio. I slicked back some water in my hair and we're ready to roll, as ready as we can be anyway. So greetings to everybody over there in the chat room. And thank you for coming. Thank you for giving me your time and making me a part of your day or your evening anyway. Hope you all have some good plans for Labor Day. It's going to be a fun weekend. We're just doing moving and stuff. So if you're local and you want to come and help heft a couple of boxes or a sofa or 2, come on over. Just call me and you'll know. But if you can't, yeah, Leslie, we can't see or smell the sweat. No, you can't. Well, that's good. And I'm not an overly stinky, sweaty type of person, but I have my moments. I did have to shower today. So there you go. We're going to talk about something that, let me introduce it this way. And this is not a biblical verse, but it's something you've all heard before in one form or another. And the direct quote is, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy." Right, it's Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 5. written, of course, by William Shakespeare. And that's some of what I want to address tonight. Even though that's not a biblical verse, we're talking about aliens, UFOs in the Bible. And believe it or not, while there is a scarcity of of information out there, the information that is available can be thick and meaty and take a lot of time to get through. So we'll do our best to get through what we've got here on the table tonight. I'm going to recommend a good book by Michael S. Carter. And that book is entitled, I've got it here somewhere, Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. And Michael Carter is somebody that in the earlier incarnation of the Intrepid radio program, John Ward and I had him on maybe 7 years ago. Are you alive over there? Do you have an alien eating its way out of your chest? Do you know why I'm laughing? Oh, is this fresh?
Mm-hmm.
What was in the bottom of the cup?
Nothing.
I see orange floaties in there.
It's the milk.
Nice. So our milk is bad. Cheers. Mm. I think you'll probably make it. It's like a good scotch. It's aged. So she's over there gagging and spitting and sputtering into the sink. And I'm like, what is going on, child? So if they're not interrupting with some kind of nonsensical material, they're interrupting in the outskirts by throwing up rotten milk. Yuck is right. I think there was something in the cup because that's a brand new gallon of milk. It was either bad from the start or what? I don't know. Sarah Yusuf says Michael Carter was featured on Ancient Aliens. Yes, he's been on the show. He has been on Coast to Coast several times. He was also featured on the Intrepid radio program. I think back in 2014, 2015, somewhere back in there. So 7 or 8 years ago. So we're going to hit that and talk about that a little bit tonight. Before we do, I want to mention, and I'm not going to get into this long, so don't worry. If any of you saw President Biden's speech last night, I did not. I didn't have time for it. But I did watch some good commentary on it this morning, and it was a rebroadcast of it. If any of you are aware of Timcast, Tim Pool, he's got his YouTube radio show, and he did had his other people from his show on there, and they did a live play-by-play as it was going last night. And I listened to that 26 minutes, and it was all at once fascinating and all at once very sad. I think, as I saw Dan Crenshaw say today, he's the running for the House of Representatives. He's the one with the eye patch. He said something like, one thing was clear about the speech last night, that Joe Biden is so incredibly non-self-aware that it's sad. He said, I may have put that up. He said this: hard to imagine a speech with less self-awareness than the one Biden gave. The exact opposite of what our country needed in tone, in appearance, and in substance. This man simply is not fit to lead, and I have to agree with that. Now, it's interesting. I put up a couple of things. If you've seen the pictures of last night's speech, very interesting. That have you seen the picture with the red in the background and the columns and all of that, and the fists in the air and so on? There's a lot of people making comparisons to Hitler with that, in the pose and the delivery tone and all of that. I think what is very sad about this is that in what the President of the United States just did last night was he said anybody who votes the other party is destroying democracy. And that's a very dangerous thing for a leader to say. That is some of your first steps to becoming, and it's very rudimentary, But if that is let to play out without check, that leads to totalitarianism, and that leads to big problems in our country. So I think he may have done himself a lot more harm than good last night. And keep in mind, Joe Biden ran as the great unifier. He was going to unify us all and bring us all together. Now, you tell me how taking almost half the country, half of the people who were recorded as voting in the last election, and say that he started by calling out Trump directly, saying, Trump and MAGA Trump supporters and all of that are destroying our democracy. And they need to be stopped because they're creating violence, and this is what they're going to do. All this hyperbole and rhetoric from the left. And then he went on to say anybody who is in the Republican Party, he contradicted himself and said it's the whole Republican Party. You'll have to watch it and find out. So it was very sad what you saw the American president do last night. And I'm still on that cusp of not sure how much I want to attribute to the mind of Joe Biden and how much I want to attribute to his speechwriters. Somebody without question repeated it. And so this is a very sad state of affairs our country is in when the president says that about his opposition. And he's trying to convince his party that everybody who is a MAGA supporter or a Republican or on the other side of the aisle from agreeing with him, that they are somehow dangerous to our society and to our culture. So there you go. And I put that up today, and I had somebody who is a good friend of mine for 30 years. And he's the same guy I've mentioned him before. I always called him Reverend Jim of the Church of Skeptic. He's a skeptic. And he and I have been good friends for a long time. And he put up a post and said, I put up a post today. And I wasn't arguing with him. I just put up a post. And I said, I put up the picture. It's on my Instagram. And I think I put it on my Facebook as well. The red picture with Biden yelling with his fists in the air. It's not retouched in Photoshop or anything. And I asked the question, how many of you watched the anti-Trump rally last night? Did you happen to catch any of the several times that Biden called Trump supporters enemies of democracy? Someone's working very hard to attempt to prompt civil unrest. Might it be the great unifier? Biden has failed to unify the country, and now he's dividing it even deeper. And then I put up the picture. And then an old friend of mine came in and said, yep, you're dupes and enemies of democracy. But by all means, keep defending your strongman leader. And then hashtag lock him up. I don't care. If Jim's got an opinion, he's got an opinion. But I said to him, defending Trump is a hell of a lot more in touch with reality than defending old Joe's foray into fascism. And I'm not using those words as political rhetoric. What Biden did last night is a perfect example of what fascism does and looks like. And I said, delineate for me what you have seen in me that makes me an enemy of democracy. You've known me for nearly 30 years. Tell me I'm an enemy of democracy, but back it with facts and evidence from your firsthand experience with me. And go, I said. So this is the kind of stuff that's going on out there. You watch a speech like that and you say, how can anybody with any common sense not see this about what's being said? And then I've got guys I've known for a long time that are spouting it and believing it. And I'm like, seriously, dude, you have got to get a grip. I'm not a Republican either, Susie Q. I'm a patriot. I'd say I'm a patriot. You notice how they tried to make the word patriot in the last year be a negative? It's being redefined as a negative word. But I'm a patriot. I'm an independent. And I have always said to people, if you want to define me by a political party, I said I am a small L libertarian, a conservative libertarian, and I'm a constitutionalist, and you could basically call me a Jeffersonian liberal by my points of view. Now, do I vote Republican? Yeah, many times I do, because those are the ones that get the closest to my core philosophy. But there you go. So I don't know where you all stand, and I hope none of you are turned off by, oh my God, he's talking about politics. You know what? If you can't handle 5 or 10 minutes of politics on this show from somebody that you like to listen to and that you tune into my show, you've got to step up, because it's starting to become a time where you got to speak up. Stop shutting up. And that has been the core problem in this war of ideologies that we see going on. The narrative is controlled by those who speak up. What did Edmund Burke say? The only, I'm trying to think of the quote just off the top of my head. The only way that evil will succeed is by, I'm paraphrasing, the only way that evil will succeed is by the fact that good people do nothing. Got to stand up to this idiocy. And it's not just I'm touting a political line or a political party. No, the United States, they are redefining democracy. They are redefining, and they are trying to turn people away from the people. Most of the people who will buy what was said last night are the uninformed. So I'll leave it at there, because I don't want to go on to this very much longer. I want to get into our topic for tonight, but I think that was worth talking about. If you did not see, some of you are going to go, I'm never going to watch that crap. It might be worth your 20 minutes to watch a replay of it. I would recommend Tim Pool. Look up Timcast, Timcast, over on YouTube. And they had a lot of fun of it with it. They were mocking it along the way, but they had some very good people in there that were commenting along the way. They're playing the drinking game. How many times is he going to talk about Trump? How many times? Here's the thing. Why did the President of the United States make a public speech last night? Why last night? Well, listen to the content of his words. You'll see why. It was a big campaign rally, and it was an anti-Trump rally. And you know what the interesting thing is? And I'll leave it at this. Trump's not even in office. Trump's not even running for anything. His name isn't on a single ballot. And the President of the United States had to have a public address to tell the United States how evil Trump is. So there you go. Trump is in their minds and will never leave them. So maybe the speech will swing independent voters. I think so. Hopefully in the right direction. I can't think anybody who thinks and has a brain and knows anything about civics, knows anything about history, knows anything about fascism, knows anything about how the United States works, knows that we are a republic as opposed to a democracy, understands what democracy is, could hear a speech like that last night without at least going, even an uninformed person who's intelligent would say, I've never heard this before, or I keep hearing this. Maybe I need to go look up some facts. So there you go. Let's hope that helps. All right, and go look up the pictures, too. I've got a picture on my Instagram, a picture on my Facebook from the speech last night. It is not touched up in Photoshop. You might think it is by the way it looks. It's not. Moving on. I've got a bunch of stuff up about aliens in the Bible. And while it's a topic that is, how's that for a segue? It's a topic where you can find a lot of things out there on the internet, a lot of things written about it, but it's really about a very small amount of information. And a lot of it is postulating, it's speculating. It is, how do I put this in simplistic terms? It's something that is somebody's take on something. This is what they see and this is how they explain it. But as for all of it, there is no way to prove any of it. You cannot quantify it. You cannot qualify it. There's no evidence in either direction. Well, the evidence that exists is personal evidence, anecdotal evidence. Maybe there's a mountain of evidence out there, but it's not accepted as substantial evidence because most of it is anecdotal. It's like the idea of ghosts. Most evidence that exists for ghosts, we're getting more and more. You're seeing the scientific community is actually coming a little closer to that now. They're starting to admit, there's something to all this. And the science community ain't all it's cracked up to be. All science is saying, this is what we know for sure so far. And even that's in question because it could change tomorrow. Like Professor Bauer has said, and we've talked about many times, it's like being in Egypt. Every time you take a step, you're kicking up history out of the dirt. And then one of these days, or every other day, something changes history. Same thing with science. Something's going to change it. Is there the ability to prove or to travel past the speed of light? Not that we know of. Doesn't work mathematically. Somebody's got a way to get around that curve. And what is it? So Beth Kirkham says, cool, we got talking snakes, giant babies, and talking donkeys. And it can't get any better. That's true. And, you look at the stuff in the Bible, and you say it's either all miracles of God, it's all in a very miraculous period of incarnation of God, or it is that stuff still happens. And there are weirder stories out there than some of the stuff you find in the Bible. And it's like I said at the beginning from Shakespeare, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And that's really the tack I take when I get onto this. And I've got a couple of things, and there's so many directions I can go, and I have so much information that I don't really know which one I want to start with here. But I started last night going through some verses in the Bible, things like that. But I have to look at also what does the Bible say about aliens at all? And people all around the world have reported sightings of all these unidentified flying objects, UFOs, now U8. What are they called now? Not UDIs. Whatever. There's a new 3-letter thing. I think they have to change that from time to time. So the scientific community, who has poo-pooed UFOs for years, can now say, oh, well, now we believe that stuff, but we've renamed it so we don't have to use the same old name they were saying didn't exist. That's what goes on. Movies, TV shows about UFOs, alien stories are popular. Government officials in the United States and many other nations have investigated unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. That's what it is now. That's like calling a janitor what's the word I'm looking for? Something engineer, a cleaning engineer or something like that. It's changing the term. So are extraterrestrials really visiting our planet? And does the Bible support that? And the only reason asking that question is important at all is because we have for the longest time, Christianity, Judaism, Islam is growing in the United States, even by leaps and bounds. There are the Abrahamic religions and other religions, and specifically Christianity, that would say that it doesn't exist. And so we say, well, does the Bible have anything to say about it? And what does the Bible have to say about it? And there's certain biblical passage that can be interpreted as possibly referring to extraterrestrials. In Genesis 1:26-28, first chapter of the Bible, before human life is created, God speaks in terms of us, planning to create human beings. Then God said, and the word for God is Elohim, the plurality of the word of God. Elohim, in the Hebrew, literally meaning, in linguistics, literally meaning God of or among many gods. Then God said, let us make man in our image, the plural is there, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. And God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female, he created them. Now, some readers suggest that the us, the plurality to whom God is speaking, are aliens. I would say I wouldn't go so far as to use that word. I would call it extraterrestrial, those not of this planet, the members of the Elohim. I remember we talked about the prefix that descended in the book of Enoch, and it's mentioned again in Genesis, and the watchers who descended down and intermingled with the daughters of men, had children by them, that they were known as the Elohim, those who are of the Elohim. And God even refers to the group and by saying, I am Elohim and you are all Elohim. The bright shining princes of heaven, he called them. And so some think it's the Trinity. It's Bible scholars, to fit their arguments, say it's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That's the us, who are distinct yet unified or united forms of himself. And I don't know about that because there wasn't a Trinity in the Old Testament. It didn't start with a Trinity. So they're saying it was the pre-incarnate Christ Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I tend to think it was the Elohim, and there's more of them than we know. The book of Enoch mentions 200 of them that were part who came down to Mount Hermon and went into the villages and intermingled with human women. 200 of them at that point. Now, Job, the book of Job, 38:4-7, reports that extraterrestrial life, which Elohim describes as morning stars, celebrated with joy when the earth is created. But then some say, well, those are likely angels. But then why did they not use, instead of morning stars, why did they not use the term for angels? Melach in the Hebrew for singular angel, Melachim for the plurality of angels. Linguistics means something. When I was in seminary in those days, we were told that the words mean something. This is why you would always hear a preacher, and Professor Bauer might be somewhat familiar with this from his old ministry days. In the original Koine Greek, this verse says, and in the original Hebrew, in the original Aramaic. Why did we have that? Because we were going back to the language to see what, as original as you can get. None of us have original manuscripts, the original writing, but we have gotten to some manuscripts. We've gotten within, that first 100 years. But how much damage could have been done, we don't know. So you start looking at that and you say, if you're going to look at a verse in the Bible, break it down, exegete it, then you have to look in languages. And so why are these beings not referred to as angels? They're not referred to as the fallen angels, the fallen Melochim. Even in Greek, it's angelos, or messenger. Instead, they're referred to as Elohim. Or in this case, in Job 38, God calls them, Elohim calls them the morning stars. Well, who are they? He doesn't call them Elohim. He doesn't call them Meloch. He doesn't call them angels. Doesn't call them demons. So Genesis chapter 6 describes Nephilim, who are the children of the sons of God, and human women. Biblical scholars have debated whether or not those sons of God, those B'nai Ha-Elohim in the Hebrew, were aliens or angels. Well, it doesn't call, if they were angels, it would have called them angels in the text, because it does in many other places. If God in the Old Testament, now of course we're making presuppositions here, that if God is the author of the Bible and he inspired men to write, let's go with that argument. Within that context, that framework of understanding and belief system, God, whenever he wanted you to know there was an angel, he called it an angel in the text. Whenever he wanted you to know it was a demon, he called it a demon. Whenever he wanted you to know it was him, he called it Elohim, El Shaddai, El Elyon. Jehovah finally came along too, which is a totally different name from Elohim. Interesting, eh? So the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old and the men of renown. We talked last night about the prophet Ezekiel's vision of the brightly lit creatures and the wheels within wheels. Doesn't it sound like a gyroscope almost? A wheel with another wheel inside, and the gyroscope, I don't know, maybe. Ezekiel concludes that it's a manifestation of God's glory rather than an encounter with visitors from other planets or other places in space. Ezekiel said this was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God. When I saw it, I fell face down. That's in verse 28 of Ezekiel 1. Now, hear the words that he used. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God. Meaning, that looked like the glory of God. He's saying, whoa, I don't know what that was, but it sure looked like the likeness of God. Spirit Heart asks, what does fallen angels mean? Earthbound? Fallen angels, they're those who came down, those who fell. The Nephilim were referred, Nephal means to fall in the Hebrew. It means to fall in battle, to trip and fall down, be killed, to leave one's first estate. So were the Nephilim fallen angels? I think they were different beings. The Nephilim, the him put on to denote plurality. The Nephilim were those who left their first estate and came down. They were fallen because of their intermingling with the daughters of men. Well, then again, it's not the Nephilim who did the intermingling. It was the Watchers. The Nephilim are the offspring. Now, what does it tell us in the book of Enoch? The Nephilim who were all destroyed in the flood, those who were destroyed in the flood, because it said some remained and survived the flood, which was the purpose of the flood, to wipe out the Nephilim. What does it say? In Enoch, he says that the spirits of the dead Nephilim will become the demonics that will haunt mankind throughout all time. So it's very interesting. Two Bible passages that could be interpreted as referring to UFOs are in 2 Kings chapter 2 and Zechariah 5. Elijah is taken to heaven by a celestial vehicle right in front of his he's the mentor to Elisha. And as they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them. And Elijah went up into heaven in a whirlwind. What the hell was that? Was that a chariot of God? Was it fiery horses? Was it something different? Now, you can go by the wording of the passage. It says it was a fiery chariot and fiery horses that took Elijah up in a whirlwind. Now, did the chariots and the horses go up in the whirlwind, or did the chariot and the horses cut in between them and Elijah's taken up in a whirlwind? So he's taken up into whatever this craft is, this chariot. Zechariah sees a flying scroll. He says, I see a flying scroll, 20 cubits long and 10 cubits wide. What the hell was he looking at? What's 20 cubits? Cubits roughly 18 inches. So what's a foot and a half by 20 by 10? It's 10 and a half feet. Is that right? 15 feet. So it's about 30 feet long. So it's, what exactly are these aliens according to the Bible? What does the Bible say about these things? It doesn't give us any further explanation. And you can start digging into the Hebrew of the text. And you're going to see that it doesn't explain it much further, but you are going to get some breakdown in language. That was one thing the Dead Sea Scrolls did for us, is they're still finding books in the Dead Sea Scrolls that they're still unraveling. And that those books are revealing more and more things that we didn't know. And they're also establishing that some of the copies that we have of the Bible date back even further to the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea Scrolls show that they date back further, and there's almost no changes in them at all. Almost intact. Leslie says maybe they're angels. Maybe they are. But why don't they then use the word for angel? They don't. That's why it's confusing. Unless God's up there, and God, like I said a couple of weeks ago, God, if he invented sense of humor, he must have a good one. What if God's up there going, I brought down this big fiery thing with wheels and animals with 3 faces and wings and stuff, and I'm not going to tell them what it is. They're going to have to figure that one out. Who knows? Who knows what is in the mind of God? If it was actually God. There's the question. The Bible does clearly describe different types of aliens, intelligent extraterrestrial life forms who travel between different dimensions. But those extraterrestrials, these are the angelic. They come from different dimensions. But he also, in the texts where he describes them, calls them angels. Malachim in the Hebrew. In Genesis 28, Jacob dreams of angels moving between heaven and earth. It says he had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to the heavens. And the angels of God, the Melachim of God, the Melachim Ha-Elohim, were descending and ascending on this ladder. So what Jacob's dream shows is essentially interstellar travel. But it does call them angels. So in that text, so I think it limits it a little bit to angels and not to extraterrestrials. Jesus describes angels traveling in a similar way when he says in John 1, you will see heaven open and angels of God ascending and descending onto the Son of Man. Same thing that Jacob saw. So the Bible says that both holy and fallen angels are at work on our planet. We've talked about that before. According to Roman Catholic theology, and I always preface it with that because this is where I first heard this, that all the, why, you asked me if I believe in fairies, the fae, the she, the banshee, elementals, all of these things. Yeah, I do. These spirit beings. In Catholic theology, they explained it by saying all the beings during the wars in heaven, too good for hell, too bad for heaven, were cast down to earth. And this was their domain. And this, they're not necessarily good, they're not necessarily evil. This is where you see, if you look at the Fae, Irish Celtic fairies, you find that they could be very nasty and very evil, but also very loving and very benevolent. So you've got this mixture. And I believe that these are the things that inhabit the earth. And Ruben Fasthorse and I talked for a long time about writing a book together on this. And with Native American traditions of these things and Celtic traditions. And that went by the wayside, just not that we're not going to do it eventually someday, one of these days. But it's something we've talked about, something I've talked about doing. Because it might be worth digging into. So the only alien type of creature that the Bible mentions by name are angels. The ones not mentioned as angels are something completely different. So the Bible never specifically mentions aliens who are visiting Earth from another planet. But just because the Bible doesn't mention them by name or say, and from the Pleiades came, doesn't say that. But it never mentions aliens from other planets. It doesn't necessarily mean that those types of aliens don't exist. God, if God is who God says he is in God's word in the Bible, God's message was to be for human beings. So it makes sense that the Bible focuses on life on our planet, life on Earth. He came here. It's provincial. It's colloquial. It's local, the word of God. And God's acts in the Old Testament and the New Testament are local to this planet. So you can ask the questions, how should Christians, how should people who believe in God, or who are strong faith-held believers in Scripture and the Bible, how should they look at the mysteries of UFOs and aliens? It's a big question. And there's a lot of valuable insights, spiritual insights. But you got to look at the Bible as a contextual book written in a language that was understood by the people of the day it was written. It was written in context to people's understanding of the day. Would God write about phasers and tricorders and transporter rooms to a people who didn't even know what a car was? That was contextually, it wasn't working. So is God going to try to describe wormholes and interstellar travel? No. And I think on top of that, the human side of that, how many things that ancient mankind called gods, goddesses, angels, demons, devils, and everything in between, how many of those might have been extraterrestrials? It's the big question here. So I have some segments from this book of Michael S. Carter's called Aliens in Scripture. And you can look at UFOs in antiquity. There's a lot of that out there. A lot of aliens in antiquity. And around 400 BCE, in his book On Nature, the Greek philosopher Metrodorus of Chios wrote, "It seems unnatural in a whole large field to have only one shaft of wheat, and in the infinite universe to have only one living world." He wrote that 2,400 years ago. The Roman historian Pliny in 66 BC, probably Pliny the Elder, a little bit before Vesuvius, a few years, 10, 12, 13 years. He wrote that a spark fell from a star and landed on the earth until it was the size of the moon. At that point, it hovered in the sky for a while. The Roman historian Livy spoke of phantom ships that gleamed in the sky. Livy also spoke of an altar which was encircled by beings in white clothing. Now, the reason I bring up some of this is not biblical stories, but it's in the age when the Bible was being written, when you had other great thinkers, philosophers, other educated people that were writing about these things. And during the siege of the city of Tyre. Hey, Ma. Hey, Rainey.
Hi.
Good to see you.
That's because I don't have a shirt on.
Yeah, no, you don't have any clothes on. I get that. And that's okay. There you go. Familial interlude of a good kind.
You are the one who made an interlude.
I made the interlude. Yes. It's a familiar interlude on my part. And I'm happy with it.
So,
Makes me happy and joy.
now that you stopped off topic.
Yeah, now that I'm off topic.
I walked out in the garage to get something out of the back of the car.
You should see this. Well, no, you shouldn't.
In the new house. And
Now you can come over.
I walked away to the car. I backed all the way into the garage. And I shut the car door.
Come here. Say
and
hi.
I felt something touch my head. And I looked up because I knew there was a string, but the string was way back here.
Come here.
And
say hi.
So I felt something touch my head over there.
Yeah. There she is. So it wasn't the string.
It wasn't the string. That was.
Was it like a touch, like a tap,
It
or
was like someone grabbed my hair and kind of went like that.
nice? Maybe it was a big spider.
It was not a spider.
No. So.
And I don't know that I'm comfortable. I don't know that I'm comfortable with those boys spending the night there with no fire.
Well,
alarms.
we say that stuff. It's how often has our fire alarm gone off and woken us up because there's a fire?
We
I'm
haven't
okay with
been
them being
in
over
this
there.
House yet. I told them to call you first
Okay,
if they want to come home.
that sounds good. So the boys, Flynn and his friend, they're camping out in the new house. There's no beds there yet. There's just stuff we've been moving over, and they're sleeping in their sleeping bags.
I spent $150 on stuff today
On
to
what?
make the house try to not smell.
That's going to be on top of the vent cleaners coming tomorrow?
So we have absolutely no money. So once this gas tank is gone, we better make sure we get all the loads over with this tank.
So
over at
folks, hit that
SOL.
join button and do a super chat and send money.
Send
God
stars.
will bless you.
What was it? 10 stars. Oh my goodness.
So Oh my goodness is right.
So,
So,
yeah, it's fun.
well, good. Well, good.
And we still need to go buy fire alarms. But I think I can go to
I can wait on the fire alarms,
I think
you
I
know,
can.
but
Well, before we're sleeping in there, I'm not sleeping in there till we have a fire alarm. I think we can go to
yeah.
the firehouse and ask for fire alarms. I'm not sure why they don't have it. What? Oh, cool. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Liz.
I don't understand. I thought when you're renting, it's required by the landlords to put.
There's a
fire
lot of
alarms.
things. It's a nice woman that we're renting from. She's in her 70s, so she's a little older, and
She reminds me a cross between my grandma
yeah,
and Bonnie Gurney.
yeah, and she's not as tall as Bonnie Gurney. They own a big horse ranch, 1,000-acre horse ranch, about 20 miles from here. And so, you know, they're well-to-do, and they're settled in life, and they've got this house. But she's not doing anything. We're okay with it because there's so few places around here to
Hold on.
get.
That's
So,
flies flying by the
flies.
camera.
Yeah, there's flies flying. Couple
this
of them
time
on my
of the year, the
screen.
flies are terrible.
So anyway, I don't want to use up the rest of our time on this,
Goodbye.
especially for the radio
Bye.
audience. Well, we've
Yeah.
only got 5 minutes left with
5
the
minutes.
radio audience.
Sorry, Andrew. You
So-
shouldn't have talked to me. It's not
Well,
your
come here.
fault. No,
Yeah, come here.
no, I already walked away. Finish your show.
No,
Finish your show.
I'm not going to finish until lest you bless me. Oh, good grief. There's no winning with women. She did kiss me earlier, though, so I'm good there. So, putting away grocery deals, says Michelle Canham Free. Rainey, reach out to me on Messenger. I'll send you some cash. Dave, we're not asking for money, seriously. But reach out to Dave for money. Dave said, reach out to him on Messenger. You must owe her money or something, I think, from the fish she brought you or something. I don't know what it was. So that's your guys' thing. All right. So anyway, that interlude was all me. And so those of you on the radio audience, I hope you aren't too disappointed that I ate up 5 minutes of our airtime. Ghosts and fire alarms. And we already had one of, since I'm off topic now, one of Flynn's friends was over, one of his teenage friends, and was at the house a few days ago with Flynn, and we were all unpacking. And he said he saw like a shadow figure in broad daylight in the house, down the hall where the bedrooms are. A dark figure. Twice he said he saw him. So we'll have to see what happens there. We're just going to sage the house and do stuff like that. So, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to take this alien series and carry it out because I got a lot. I got page after page after page after page after page after page of notes and good information, historical information that ties into why, if you've got information in the Bible, in history, the Bible has history as well. It's just a historical book of faith. But why doesn't that, and it's not focusing on the other stuff, but you've got history of the same day and age that's focusing on it. Must we what? What are you saying must we for, Sarah? You're saying you don't want to carry this series out a little bit and talk more about this? Or are you talking different context? So, yeah, I think we should. I think we should talk a little bit more about alien life and the possibility of it, if that's what you're talking about. So, yeah, I want to at least 1 or 2 more nights to talk about this because I think it is highly when you start getting into history and you're talking about how during the siege of the city of Tyre in 322 BCE, Alexander the Great cited the formation of round silver shields circling the city and enabled them to take the city by destroying the city walls with beams of light. And this story is really similar to the Old Testament involving the city of Jericho. So I want to look at that stuff. I want to break some of this stuff down and enjoy it. And see if we can, if there's anything to learn from it, anything to glean from it, anything that we can add to our little basket of knowledge. And it doesn't have to be wrapped up in a faith story, but I think it's important to a certain degree to say that some of these things were mentioned in the Bible. Remember, we talked about the book of Job, and I was jokingly saying, the Pleiades I mentioned earlier. Well, God mentions the Pleiades in the book of Job. This is the oldest chronological book in the Bible. He mentions Orion, the Pleiades, and one constellation. We don't know exactly which one it was. So it was hailing to old pagan religion of the day, not early Judaism or a proto-Judaism. So to the radio audience, we're going to get out of here, but stick around if you are not listening on the radio, or if you're on the radio, get over to the YouTube page. We're going to go out to a commercial break. And when we come back, we'll be with the Captain's Cabin. So those of you who are here on radio, we're going to say goodnight to you right now. So live long and prosper. Be right back.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
All right, folks, welcome. That was a fly going over the lens of the camera again. I just killed 2 of them on my computer screen. There's like 3 or 4 or 5 of them in here, and they all are drawn to my screen. But welcome to the Captain's Cabin. Arr. Good to have you here, mateys and avast and all of that, by thunder. So, do we have a show on Monday? I don't know yet, Sarah. Let's see how Monday goes. I would say, whenever there's a holiday that comes up and I say, we're not going to do a show because it's a holiday. Everybody go enjoy your holiday. But what happens every holiday? Usually by about 9 o'clock at 10 o'clock at night, everybody's already done for the day. And they're like, oh, I wish that radio show was on, because you sit down and you do your thing. You're done doing your festivities, or unless you're sitting out on a pontoon on the lake still. But Monday night, everybody's got to be back home anyway if they go to work on Tuesday. So there's that. And Steve said, I'll never talk about some of the stuff that I've experienced in my lifetime because some would think that I'm crazy. I'm going to tell you a little story here, Steve. My own wife, when I was writing my book, I packed it up. The Secret History of the Reptilians. She told me one day, she said, and Rainey, you're nearby, so you can correct me if I get this wrong. But she said something like, I saw through our bedroom window, which looked out into we had this big, broad backyard that was deep and had oak trees and then fields behind it. And she said, I saw something, a creature, looking in the window out in the yard more than once. And I could only describe it as reptilian. And I said, when did this happen? She said, long time ago, weeks or months ago. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? And Steve, you know what she said to me? Well, I didn't want you to think I was weird. I said, Rainey, it's what we do. At that point, we'd already been married for 6 or 7 years. And so it's like, if I don't think you're weird already, you're not going to make me think you're weird by that. Did I get that story right? Sorta, she said. What did you see exactly? Do you remember?
It was like it's not like a nose, right? So
Yeah.
Like, it was like that part up.
Just from about here up?
It was like they're just kind of staring in the window.
Staring in the window. What were you doing when you saw that?
I was laying in bed.
And it was a light from inside that was hitting them?
I was laying in bed watching TV, and I just looked over. But when we went outside, you would have to be like, I was like 6 foot tall.
Yeah, outside that window, you'd have to be over 6 feet tall to have that much of your face showing above the windowsill. Interesting. So, Sarah, do you not want to talk about aliens anymore? I think this is great stuff. So there may or may not be a show on Monday. All depends on how the day goes and how absolutely worn out I am. But I'll have to know by midday so I can let you all know whether or not there's going to be a show, so I can let the radio station know if there's going to be a show, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So far, I kind of plan on it. And when I say that, there's the possibility we won't. Let's put it that way. But we probably will. At my fly swatter. I keep seeing them. They land right up above the camera, right up here, above the camera on the top of the computer screen. So anyway, thank you for everybody that's still here. I'm glad you're here. There's a link in the YouTube description link. Oh, okay. Talking about something heart. Oh, here's Spirit Heart.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, how are you doing?
Oh, it's been a week, Scotty.
Has it been?
Yes. And I got to try to get you on my mic. Saying, can you give me a minute?
Sure can.
Okay. I don't know how to do this. I'm new.
You want me to mute you while you're getting set up?
It says I'm connected.
Oh, you are connected. I see you. You're being broadcast all around the world right now.
I'll see you. Oh, that's scary.
Yeah. Hey, Uncle Dave.
Howdy, howdy.
I hear crickets.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Crickets
so
are
I see your face and your hat.
Yeah, it's not letting me hook up my Bluetooth, so I'm just going to
just
talk to you.
You're okay so far on this end. So
okay, good. You guys can hear me, and I don't have to raise my... Okay.
So what are some of your experiences that you were talking about?
Oh, just last night. Rainey said what she said, yes. And I went and spent the night last night with an old friend at the lake. And she has this 200-year-old couch, and she never lets nobody sit on it. She just loves her furniture, and, that's cool.
Yeah.
But she allowed me to, and I was like, oh, cool. I get to sleep on a 200-year-old couch all night long. So many things happened. First, the water got spilled. I was drinking.
Literally a 200-year-old couch.
Pardon me?
I said literally a 200-year-old couch.
Literally. I'll get a picture of it and post it on Facebook. I'm going there tomorrow to barbecue. But the thing of it was the first thing I felt a cat. Okay. Under the couch, rubbing against my legs. There was no cat. Okay. We have a Chihuahua. My brother does. And he was upstairs with my brother, right? Everybody's in bed. I'm just up listening to you guys. All right. I plugged in the cord to charge my phone. Okay. I had to plug it in 3 times. It kept getting unplugged. My water got spilled. Something kept touching me. It was just ridiculous. And that's not what I wanted to share. But it just happened. And when Rainey said that, I thought, well, I'm going to tell them what happened.
Yeah. Well, and Rainey is, I always say, Rainey is the magnet for spiritual types of activity. The ghosts, the things looking in the windows, the things
hell
like
yeah.
that. I don't attract it that way. And if I do, I experience it in a different way. But she's the one that's like, did you see that thing? And all the time. It's like, no, I didn't see that thing. Thanks for freaking me out. So,
yeah,
but,
I got many stories.
Well, tell us one more. If you got one more, let's hear something.
Speaking of the angels and the Nephilim and everything.
Yeah.
My first experience, that I can remember this evening, I had a fender bender today. You wouldn't believe it. All kinds of stuff happened today. But anyways, when I was a little girl, I was 5, and we just moved to Jellicoe, Tennessee. And we were living in Indiana before that. And it was a Sunday morning, and we lived in this old rickety house. Everybody else's house was nice. Half of the house was condemned. We weren't even allowed in it. I mean, we came from, the poor folk of the mountains, so to speak. And I had heard this sound. Okay. And I had my pony. I was out feeding my pony. I was about 5 or 6. And I went around the back, which I wasn't allowed, but I did. And I was following that beautiful sound. I couldn't figure out what it was. I'd never heard anything like that in my life. And it was just like, it sounded like it was coming from the sky. And so I followed the sound. Okay. And we lived on top of the mountain.
The sound of rushing wind?
No.
Like the biblical stories say?
I couldn't explain it till I got closer. Okay. And I get behind the house, and I go in between the woods, and I walk down the hill, and I hear the sound. But the only thing I see in the clearing is a building, and it had a cross on it. I'd never been in church in my life. Okay. I didn't even know what it was. I'd never seen a picture of Jesus. Nobody ever prayed, and come to find out, when I got out there, that was a church. I figured out later, of course, and they were singing. It was the choir singing. And I was so drawn to that. Right. Yeah. Well, I thought, I'm going to get switched if I don't get back to the front yard with my pony. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was nobody there. You were just hearing the singing.
Well, I turned around to go back, Scotty, and there was this man in a robe, and he had this braided belt on, and he had a white robe, and he had sandals on, and he had long hair. It was down to his shoulders. It was wavy, and he had the most peaceful smile I have seen in my life as a child. Well, wow. He said, hello, Cordia. I said, how do you know my name? I'm 5. I'm not allowed to talk to strangers. Okay. That was the first rule of the house. He goes, me and my father know you. And I go, does my daddy know you? He goes, yes. And I go, what's that sound? He goes, that's people praying and worshiping God. I said, it's so beautiful. He goes, yes, it is. My father loves it. And I turned around and said, well, I got to go home or I'm going to get in trouble. He goes, that's okay. You can go. And I said, before I go, will you play Ring Around the Rosies with me? And he took my hands and did 2 circles with me. And I said, I got to go. I don't want to get in trouble. I won't get to ride my pony for a whole week, right? So I started up the trail, turned around and looked, and there wasn't anybody there. But I couldn't tell my father because I would have gotten in trouble.
Did you ever talk to your mom or your dad?
Yeah.
Did you ever eventually talk to him and ask him about that?
What?
Did you ever eventually talk to your mom or dad about that and ask?
I kept most things quiet because at the time I didn't know it, but I was pretty gifted. And the more I told people about the stuff I saw, felt, heard, seen,
Mhm.
it was dogmatic. I started getting labeled as a disturbed child. So I started keeping everything inside.
Yeah.
So you guys
That's
have heard it for the first time.
yeah.
So, but that's only one, and that's all I'm going to share tonight. It's been
It
a long.
reminds me of that Alabama song that my mom, when she was there was a nasty story. She was shot in the chest by her former husband.
Oh my
Dave
God.
remembers when all this happened back in the late 90s. And he was a fugitive. But the night when that happened, she describes how she got away from him, gets in the car, doesn't remember doing anything, backs the car back through the closed garage door out onto the street, ends up at the police station. And she ran a karaoke business. And so she had all these different places and regular people that were fans of hers. And one guy sang that Alabama song. And that was one that, and I know you know it, it's a simple song. And it's one of those that people would say is kind of corny. But, it's where he starts the song and he's talking
I've been
and
called
he's
that.
talking it. But the chorus is, and I believe there are angels among us.
That's my
sent
favorite
down
song.
to us from somewhere up above. They come to you and me in our darkest hours to
Yeah.
show us how to live, to teach us how to give. And so,
Yes,
and I thought that was a pretty powerful song. It's still powerful when I hear somebody
it
sing it.
is. I still cry when
So,
I sing that.
yeah.
So.
Well, thank you for coming in and thank you
Well,
for
thank you all. I
sharing
thought
your
it was
stories.
about time we all met, and I had a stressful
Absolutely.
day, and it was like I got to release some of it. So why not tell what I've been through?
Yes.
And that's just the beginning. I've had those dark ones too. So
Yeah.
maybe every now and then I'll jump in and share a couple stories.
Yeah.
Well, that was
an interesting
great,
story.
Horatio. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you all.
Absolutely. See you later.
All the kids here said hi. We've got a
Hey,
fire
kids.
going,
Hi,
and I'm
Dad.
going to go grab the marshmallows.
Hey, everyone. Have a marshmallow for me.
Good night, y'all.
I don't
Thank
like
you.
those, especially when they get into my beard.
Thank God I don't got one.
There you go. Yes.
All right.
You
Good
have a
night,
good
y'all.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Well, those are the stories that always get me. It's those ones where they see somebody, like she said, she saw this guy in the white robe and the things he said, and then play Ring Around the Rosie with me, she asked him, and then he did, took her hands. So what do you do with those stories like that other than say, this is that person's personal anecdotal story? Professor Bauer, I want to ask you, because we talk about this stuff and about belief and so on and all these. What do you do with a story when you hear that? What does that do for you in any kind of form, on a either faith form or what category would you put that in, and how do you react to that story? Let's get past you believe the person has credibility, so you trust that they're telling a version of a story that they believe actually happened. And so, what does that do for you when you hear that? They're telling a version of a story that. Oh, we got a little feedback from you, Sarah. There you go. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey.
A couple of things, and actually a number of different offshoots. So I'll just try to keep it on point for a change.
Right.
Long story short, too long, too late.
Short story long is, so first of all, her experience was just like the ones that you guys shared the last time we talked about this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Same kind of encounter with someone that transferred information in the form of an experience or some knowledge or something that was a profound, real event for you.
Yes.
So it's in that same, to me, just on 30,000 foot, it's the same kind of experience. Now, what is that experience? Where does that come from? Is there something that actually is that occurs, or is it something that happens in the mind that is just kind of, it's only manifest there? It's not really something real. It just
Except I was
appears,
handed a physical object that I maintained then for a number of years afterwards.
and then there's that, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So when there's that physicality of an experience like that, that falls into, well, first of all, without any kind of physical evidence that you can't personally share with anybody other than your experience and explaining it to them, that falls into the category that I was talking about before, what I call the personal empirical data set. Because you have your empirical experience is that reality that only you know. And that's what everything actually is your own personal empirical reality. Okay.
Yes.
So in that space, wherever that is, it clearly is something that is not necessarily regular. It's more rare than it is regular, although I think there's all kinds of little events and experiences that are of the same nature, of the same manifestation. You can, hear a whisper, hear a voice or something that's less tangible than the actual visual experience that you have. So
yeah.
I think there's a lot more of that. And it's because it's the nature of reality. It's the nature of how consciousness functions.
Okay.
It's a habit. So
Ouch.
The key is, in its rarity, is there a reason for that? And is it something that you can have more influence or control over? In other words, can you manifest a conversation with your ancestors or with your spirit guides? Can you manifest a telepathic communication with somebody that you have worked with to do that? Yes. I mean, there's all kinds of empirical scientific data to support that. So having said all of that, so those are the two things. One, it was similar to what you guys described, a very tangible, interactive experience, right? Hers seemed to be a little bit longer than what either one of you experienced, because you guys, I think the characteristic that was common was this person appeared, did something, and then was gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It was a very quick one.
Yeah.
Cordia's sound like it was like a 5-year-old going through. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that in her mind that happened. And then her mind is the reality that she was experiencing. So,
and the younger you are, the thinner the veil is between our world and the other side.
Right.
Why is that?
Exactly right.
Yeah, I think it's because when you're freshly over here, I think it's and
you're still learning.
True on the other end. When you're really old and you're nearing that point, the veil gets thinner. You start to see relatives coming to visit you and things like that. My grandmother went through a thing where she had visits with each of her siblings before she passed. And my grandfather, I was at his deathbed when he passed, and he was talking about all the people that he was seeing that had joined around the bed, besides mom and dad and myself and a handful of corporeal people that were there. He was talking about relatives that were long since passed. And when my uncle showed up, who had passed when I was 10, then I knew he was going, and he went really quick.
Wow.
Yeah. See, some of the ones that fascinate me the most are the ones of people that have been under anesthesia in major surgery and have left their bodies.
Yeah.
And can recount the entire experience, who was there, what they said, okay, and what they did, and just watch the whole thing, right? And one of the interesting things about anesthesia is, just like electricity, they don't know why it works. anesthesia is something they just know what it does, but they don't
Right.
know why or how it does it, right? But it's an induced. It apparently looks. I would think that at a minimum, it's putting some kind of major filter, even maybe a block between the biology and then what I think about as the mind is not in the biology, but the mind is the interface between the cosmic creation and the animated meat sack that we inhabit. Okay, so
It
the mind
disconnects from the soul.
it's the mind is different. It is the essence of the consciousness connection that we all experience. There seems to be this common energy stream, like a stream, and it has commonality, and we all seem to apparently exist in that mainstream. But there's all kinds of holes and off ramps and whatever you want to call them in that stream that you can go experience, like astral travel, remote viewing, the psychic abilities, clairvoyance, clairaudience.
Is this Michelle Cannon Free says they've tested this by putting still life photographs on top of high equipment in the OR and Probo and things like that. Now, why do they do that? To see if somebody who's actually going up is seeing those things?
Well, they're trying to
higher...
detect. They're trying to use telemetry to detect anything that appears to be where some energy or something is coming out of the physicality. And so they're just looking. In my opinion, they're looking at it. They're looking for the wrong thing for the right reasons.
Okay.
They're not. And I think we have the telemetry and the toys to measure the spectrum that happens in.
Sure.
But they just haven't pointed it in the right place and looked for the right thing. But nonetheless, yeah, there is scientific empirical data of being able to. There's even the weight factor, where there's some 1.5 pounds or somewhere in that range.
Yep.
That they've been able to detect as happening rather instantly. So to me, again, I look at it as we are just in a vibratory state of a set of frequencies and fields that manifest the reality we experience. There's a shitload that we are way above and way below of what we experience that's actually available in the frequency fields. And that's where all this other magic stuff that we consider to be magic is and habits naturally. I think I was talking the other night, the whole idea about dimensionality, how there's, omniverses, multi-dimensions, ultra dimensions, omni dimensions. And I think that it's probably not, it's probably the wrong word in the way that we have applied it to how we're trying to define it. I think the real world, or it should be in a frequency set. If you look at everything that even quantum mechanics and everything, all the sciences currently that are on the leading and bleeding edge of thought and theory, is that everything is vibrates. Everything's a frequency. And it's just in different frequency states that result in the reality we experience. But the one ultimate connection seems to be this consciousness field. It seems like consciousness is where all this shit happens anyway. Whatever our definitions are and how we experience these things, like Cordia shared and you guys, and I, like I said, I haven't had anything as intense as that, but I've seen some stuff that required a whole nother physics set for it to be happening, right?
How about you, Sarah?
About me, what?
I just wonder,
have you experienced anything like this?
We may have talked some of this before, but we've kind of morphed from aliens into weird types of experiences. But
I don't think I've been abducted by aliens, but I mean, as far as having spiritual experiences, yeah, I mean, not in the terms of seeing ghosts, like seeing a ghost or anything like that, but I mean, even just today I had an epiphany, a spiritual epiphany, and I'm still kind of riding the high off of that.
Nice.
What was your spiritual epiphany? Can you share it with us? Something you want to share?
It's a little bit convoluted, but I mean,
Okay.
basically,
We're good with convoluted.
no, but I mean,
Did you just hear what I said?
that's pretty linear compared to what I went through.
Okay, awesome.
He brought out my
That's probably the least convoluted thing you've said in the last month. But that's
he brought out my Captain Barbarossa laugh. So, okay, go ahead, Sarah. I'm sorry.
But I mean, not to go into too much detail and all that, but I mean, there were like certain events that were happening over the past couple weeks. So some were a little bit synchronistic, some were not, and some were just stuff I just noticed. It was like, huh, okay, whatever. And then you go on through life, and then today I had a feeling like it was like all the dots just connected, and then I came to a conclusion. I just came to a conclusion because I was going through some stuff internally, and I was like it just made sense. It was like a eureka moment, and then I had to kind of go back and revisit stuff from my past and relearn it and apply it to now, which was exactly what I needed. And apparently the payoff was this big endorphin rush. So
isn't that awesome? Yeah, it was a dopamine where it was just like
dopamine,
one, right?
Yeah.
Dopamine.
Yeah.
But look, Sarah, can I ask you? Can I ask you the epiphany? You don't have to give the detail, but what was the frame of the epiphany? Was it something that you had as a question in your mind for a long time, or was it not having a sense of understanding a set of circumstances and then having a realization? Was it one of those two?
Kinda, I guess, but I mean, over the past couple weeks, especially, I was reaching a point where I was just feeling like really perpetuating like negative thoughts, and just felt bad about myself. I mean, to put it in a visualization perspective, it's like I felt like I was covered in giant black leeches. I just felt terrible. So once I reached this epiphany, and everybody has their own internal light, as you would call it. I definitely believe it, because it's in Islam, the sense of iman or whatnot. So it was like, it would be like random stuff, like in the morning when I'd be going to work, if I was feeling especially bad, I'd turn on my car radio, and it would play Elton John's "I'm Still Standing." and it's like, this happened like 5-6 times during the week.
Messages through externals.
Yeah. So, or just to remind me, I said, okay, we're get through the day, because I mean, it was to the point where I was like, I didn't want to get out of bed, but I made myself go, because you have to go to work and do all of that. So after this epiphany, it was like I felt like this really I remembered something of people change over time, and I remembered something that I did in the past, or it was more like a state of mind that I used to keep. It's like when you grow up and you lose certain values and thoughts, or
sure,
if you believing in the tooth fairy or something like that, or something. But I mentally, I mean, I couldn't even connect the dots, and all of a sudden, that came back, my own memory of that, and I kind of applied it into my current situation, and I just felt like a light was brighter. It was something initially kind of dim, and then it was just brighter.
What do you do when suddenly you realize later that the tooth fairy is real? I mean, you go those ups and downs,
Well, I mean, it's not just ups and downs, but I mean, I consider it, because I consider it, within the frame of my religion and all that, because I mean, for the average person, you'll say your prayers, you hope for the best, and then, if you're lucky, you'll get 30% of it. And understand, why am I going through this? Why am I, what is God trying to put me through? What is he trying to prepare me for down the road, that I have to go through this to get to there? It's that sort of thinking. But for me, it was like, and over time, it just feels like, a little bit like oppression. You just go down, and you go through cycles of depression. I mean, I do, but
I get that.
Yeah, you just go down, you're up and down. I mean, not like bipolar or anything. I'm not manic or anything like that. Most people say I'm like monopolar.
Well, you got to remember, Sarah, that all of the narrative today, the use of the words, they're very fluid. So what may be one person's manic depressive is another person's happy place.
Right.
You should say it like my ex did. I'm not bipolar.
Well, yes, I am.
Well, I mean, I'm just determined, because I know how my life is, and so I'm just going to ride the high while I got it, and not try to be cringing for anticipating for the next blow. But it's just,
well, that's awesome, Sarah. And one of the things that let me ask that other question a different way. Or maybe
that's
not.
What I do mostly. Yeah.
The experience you had, it happened in your mind, right? You thought about it. It was epiphanonic, if that's a word. And once it happened in your mind, you got the dopamine rush. Right. So that just shows the power of the mind, at a minimum, because this is something that has sent me down this long and winding road of all this stuff that I keep going on about, is that when I had those experiences where I could take and imagine something and then visualize, find something I really like in my imagination, and then visualize that and focus on it and put energy into it from my mind, then it would happen. And when you get that, sometimes it's delayed. Most of the time it is, depending on what it is you're trying to manifest or focus on. But those times that it is like that, and even when it takes a while and you finally realize it, that's magic in the mind.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even focused on that issue at all, because I was like in the middle of work, working on the computer, working on my reports and all that. But I mean, that's fine. But for me, in my worldview, it's like I look at it, because everything in my worldview, comes from God. So I think of it as getting a little bit of the carrot instead of the stick for once.
Sure. That's nice every now and then.
Yeah, once in a while.
And then you start chasing that stick because you're going, I don't want to
chase the carrot, not the stick.
Well, you go out. Well, I can get the carrot. I want that stick too.
For certain personality types, but yeah, I mean, it was like confirmation, not really I don't really see it as confirmation either. Like it's confirmation that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing or anything like that. It wasn't even like that, but I just, it was just euphoric. I mean, it was just like this feeling of euphoria, and I'm just, still kind of riding the high of that. So I mean, since 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Would you consider it a Gnostic experience, a gnosis, where you felt it in your bones?
No,
you just got the ephemeral rush, the body rush, the body high. Cool.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just weird, because this stuff doesn't really happen to me. So I mean, as far as where do thoughts come from? The mind. Well, mind or consciousness. Morgan's asking.
Morgan Snow just asked that. Where do thoughts come from? The mind?
But I mean, as far as Now I lost the train of thought. So-
It's okay. I do it all the time.
Well, let me pick it up. I'll take it down the track a little bit. The thoughts are the activity of consciousness. So to me, consciousness creates the energy of the reality and the universe that we at least can observe, and we've tried to attach some kind of names to and try to understand it in a way that with what we know in this physical realm. But the consciousness that's the essence, the personal frequency signature of our individuality within consciousness.
Right.
So if you want to call it
resonance, it's resonance.
Resonance.
Well, it's a connectedness, right? You're not just resonating with and in harmony with, but you're the result of that where the harmony and the resonance is. But you are an individual expression of it. So that one of the habits and nature of consciousness to me is that it's constantly creating. There's constant new, there's always something changing. The only constant is change, and that seems to be the nature of consciousness. And it appears to just keep proliferating. It keeps, it just keeps it putting out always something new.
So would you say that it's the connection between, let's say, the ephemeral self and the physical world?
The mind is.
And well, I'm talking about, this connection, the connection.
So the connection is this material expression of the energy of consciousness has created this, whatever this is, however we define it, but the physical realm that we exist in. That's that band of consciousness that's commonly shared among the individual conscious signatures that we are. So just like consciousness keeps creating it apparently created us. It spawned us off as another expression of itself. And that is a part of that is why we exist in the way we do in this reality, because there is a nature and a habit to manifest and unfold the way that we experience it. And I think that this expression, probably some of so I do believe that the energy, that expression, that frequency set that makes us the unique individual we are, is eternal. That energy signature, once it was stamped, it's just in the frequency fields, and it just exists with all the others, and everything continues on. Energy just manifests itself differently in this expression of it. So it seems as though the whole idea of reincarnation, or what I call it, is iteration. We iterate here. We don't reincarnate as the one we were before, which is to me what reincarnation more points to. But I do think that whatever this frequency signature is that makes us unique, that comes from the consciousness that makes everything, there seems to be a cyclical iteration of it. And that's what the stories that we've been given, the definitions we've been given, and then have been recorded through all civilizations in some way, shape, or form, with varying degrees of hell and fire and brimstone and heaven, and some sans both of those, which is one of the things that drew me to Taoism. But the idea of thoughts, because that was the question that I think she asked, where did thoughts come from? Thoughts, to me, are the spontaneous nature and habit of our individual consciousness signature because the nature of what we came from always creates. So we have that same capacity, and thoughts are the curious journeys that we take in our consciousness. So, I mean, if you think about what is a thought is a assemblage of energy and a projection. Doesn't matter what the thought is. It can be anything that you can think of is a thought. So that thought is something you're creating in your mind. So your mind is the interface between the consciousness that we are and the biological unit that we're Ubering in on this iteration. And that, I think, is what we're actually experiencing. And to me, it's extremely simple. It eliminates a whole bunch of shit and really breaks it down into anything else that you, and what makes it easier for me is that once I had the realization that everything is somebody else's speculation, and it doesn't matter what you look at any category, it's all speculation, and there's nothing really known for sure. And I'm talking about knowledge domains, science in particular. So not only are all the things that you have available to define the reality you experience, both consciously or mentally and physically, all of that information is somebody else's speculation. And just like everybody else, that's all you have is your own speculation. You're speculating about everything because that's how
well, that's the truth. That's how it works. Even the things we were talking about earlier tonight, it's all of this stuff when it comes to faith, when it comes to, and you have to listen really close when people are talking, when they say, I think it's this, or I think it might be that, or, hey, what about that? And you say, that's speculation. That's speculative on your part.
It's speculation on us talking about aliens in the Bible.
Right, it's pure speculation.
Yeah,
there's no way to know for sure.
But
about
speculation
God in
is
the Bible is speculative.
Well, yeah, everything, all reality is speculation. So if you start from that premise, then it's much easier to vet that which you have speculated incorrectly.
Right.
One of the most important things that you can do is to become a speculative analyst, and become an adept in looking at things and trying to understand the speculation of them.
You just think of that title all by itself. How anachronistic is not the word I'm looking. Paradoxical that title is. A speculative analyst. I'm going to analyze this speculation. Norman Glasser asks, when does a thought become reality?
Oh, that's one of those ones where
Norman,
I answer that with thoughts become things, and it's a matter of what the thought is and what the energy signature of that thought. And that's the cool thing again about, just to go back real quick before I finish that, Steve, this whole idea of creation is what thinking is about. When you think, you have to have you start with a thought to think, and then you come up with something to think about, and then you thought about that.
What he's saying is, in order to answer this, he can't just take it down the track. He's got to switch over to the bullet train now.
That's right. So, Norman Glasser, you've just introduced a new week-long topic.
Direct hit.
So we're on our way to Kyoto, ladies and gentlemen.
Sit back and enjoy. Enjoy your drinks.
Put your seat backs and your tray tables in their upright and locked position.
That's right.
There are no stops on this express.
That's right.
So the bottom line is the thoughts become reality only when you think them into reality, and you can. There's all kinds of techniques. There's all kinds of different ways, affirmations, visualizations, meditations on them, all kinds of different ways to tune the frequency set in your mind. You exist. You can change your body just by your thoughts. In fact, you can change your DNA construct, in my opinion. Now they've got a number of studies that have come out in the last 3 or 4 months where they've got, we got all this evidence that mental energy, and seeing that at least measured in the nervous system organ called the brain. That's not where your mind is. That's not where your thoughts are. It feels like it, but it's outside of that. The brain is just the nervous system organ.
DNA is alterable by consciousness?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
You can
Because
change.
I didn't think DNA was something you can alter. I mean, if your DNA
There's
says you're
mutations.
Scottish, can you suddenly make it French because I'm thinking that?
Well, it's more about the form and the function
Right,
of them,
I get that.
as opposed to transforming them into something completely different. Like, for example, and fortunately, we're way away from having this level of knowledge as a collective of humans all together. But you could, with your mind, do a gender change and have it all work. Okay,
I'm sure.
You
David
could
done it many times.
That is possible. Now, fortunately, that level of awareness and understanding and mastery of that realm of frequency physics is not here yet.
Isn't
But
that the same?
It could be done.
Isn't that the same type of thing where Jesus in the New Testament says to his disciples, if you say to that mountain, if you have a faith the size of a mustard seed,
exactly,
you can move that mountain? Is that the kind of consciousness?
That's the
kind.
By
the way, I have to say hi to Andrea Mulnix and Elizabeth Richardson over in the chat room. So
yeah, exactly. That's the kind of manipulation through being in understanding the metrics of that frequency set. What would it take to actually take that thought that is that small as a mustard seed and look at that mountain and say, move over here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a frequency set that's there, that is available, but it's a very specialized frequency set, and it takes a lot of practice to go from where we are to get to there. But there is, it's like, I'll tie in the, some of the archaeological stuff, specifically over in Egypt at the pyramids, at Abydos. I mean, you look at the size and the capabilities of what we could do today, of the size of those buildings and the construct of it. And there's no way that it was done with any of things that are explained away by the current paradigm. Okay. It's just you look at it, you go, okay, nice try. Your answer requires that your questions need to be re-examined, because the answer you got doesn't make any sense.
You're not mocking erasure, are you? We keep hinting at this. One of these nights, Professor Bauer and I are going to have a debate on this show about the Abydos lintel. So,
but literally, I mean, what you have is what looks like, and there are no records, there's no definitive by those who supposedly did how they did. They did the how of doing wasn't the important thing. It was the getting it done and making it so, right? Bringing that stuff into reality. But I think, particularly at a number up at Puma Punko, I think that what was there was technology that used light and particularly sound. And I think that sonic frequencies are going to be one of the key things that's going to change just about everything, but more importantly, health. Sonic frequencies and electromagnetic fields are just like you see on Star Trek with the tricorders, okay? But devices that will be able to focus sonic and electromagnetic frequencies in the healing process. What's that?
Scotty, do you remember out at festival when we used to base people?
Yes.
That's what he's talking about. That's that same thing. Somebody would not be feeling right.
Yep.
They would stand in the center, and all the basses and tenor and baritones would get around them and we would pick a tone and hold that tone and bring their vibration into tune and literally change them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because it's something that, and again, that for me, I'm looking at it knowing what I do about both subjects, sound and electromagnetic fields. And the more I look into it and the more I see examples of it, the more I'm convinced that this is going to be one of the keys in the knowledge apocalypse, because sound and frequency is what everything is made of, light and sound.
Yeah.
Those are the energy expressions that manifest the reality that we experience. So if you think about reality in that way, then you look at everything in a much simpler perspective with a lot more inquiry. So your curiosity becomes piqued, and that sends you off into your field of imagination. And God help you if it's overly fertilized like mine is.
Andrea Mullick said, and I've got it up on the window here. Hang on, Sarah. She just said trauma and epigenics, which is where she experiences this in her work all the time. Trauma has been shown to change DNA in subsequent generations.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I read a couple studies on that. They were really interesting. They've tested on certain like worms and stuff. I think
would this be the etymology, is perhaps biblical etymology of God saying, the sins of the fathers are passed on to the sons and so on? Is it that same kind of thing? That's a etymological way of explaining perhaps how trauma and DNA can be passed on to somebody else.
I mean, there's also, things some people believe in genetic memory or muscle memory.
Sure.
Morphic resonance.
Can be passed with, morphic resonance. But going back to Egypt for a second, I totally agree with, the idea that sound definitely had a part in the building of the pyramids, particularly in Giza, because there was some studies done, and my friend Mike Ricksecker, he went to Giza and took some readings himself, that some of the major chambers, the Queen's Chamber and various chambers, they're keyed to different tones. Like some's in the key of A or the key of C.
You stand in the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid of Cheops, and you can, what a studio that would make. Professor Barr, I'd love to get you into the King's Chamber in Cheops with your guitar or with just the vocals. And we vocalized in there. We sang and vocalized. And it was so, I don't even know how to describe the right words for it. The harmonics were unbelievable. The sound. So I get you.
This is like the Hypogeum up in Malta. Has a resonance frequency of 111 hertz. Now, 111 is in the esophageal realm of frequencies. Okay, it's one of the 9 frequencies. And when you start looking at frequencies and where, at least with the telemetry that we have today, there's all these resonances. Like, for example, our brain resonates and our body resonates at roughly 8 hertz. Okay, and it fluctuates a little bit. Then you have this field around the Earth, this geomagnetic field called the Schumann resonance, and it vibrates. Its natural state is 7.8 hertz. And you start looking at how all these frequencies have this commonality, and then they have math on them. So, for example, the Schumann will
just ruined it. I'm kidding.
The Schumann will resonate for anywhere from 7, it'll go up to 14, and then it'll double up to 28. And you start seeing these mathematical models, or at least cycles, of the way that stuff works. Once you look at it that way, it's like, okay, I can kind of navigate through this frequency set. I can kind of go, okay, I can look for good frequencies in resonance. And particularly that's I mean, great music, great rhythm, great harmonies.
Mm-hmm.
The whole mathematical model that we use of 12 notes is very limited compared to others. They have all kinds of notational structures that we don't, and they listen to sounds in a different way. But sounds is like, I guess there's two universal things that if we met aliens and they came down and we tried to figure out how to communicate with them, it would be one in math and two in sound. We would have some kind of, in a way that Close Encounters, dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
right? They're playing sounds and colors, trying to see if that is something that would resonate. And apparently it must have sounded like a doorbell, because they finally opened the hatch, came on out, right?
Yeah.
So
that was also used in a Roger Moore James Bond movie, Moonraker.
Yeah,
he pushed
and then
pushed in the code to something going dee 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 dee.
And then you go to Independence Day, and when they sent the helicopter up with the lights and tried to communicate with some kind of light and rhythm, it blew them out of the sky. So it's like, well, you got to be careful who you're going to go try to talk to, I guess, is a moral
Steve
lesson.
Clark asked a question here, and he brought something up a little earlier. He said, I've been able to fix stuff without looking up how to fix it. I can do things that I've never even known I had the knowledge to do. And he asked us finally, so Professor, knowledge could be held in our DNA? He's asking that question.
I would say that knowledge of knowing that and knowing how to do that is more in the frequency signature that you are, in the one that's
like
iterating.
The genetic knowledge or genetic memory.
Yeah, I don't think genetics may have something, but I think that the whole genetic biological thing is given more weight than it deserves. It's and it's still not understood. There's a bunch of hypotheses about, in fact, there's the thing that they found from the Human Genome Project, that there is a fused gene, I think it's at number 8, that has no explanation. And they don't know why it's been fused, but it is artificial in its construct. And that is in all of our DNA. And they, the current model is that they say that some 90% of our DNA is junk. They don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so the DNA thing is still got a ways to go. But from my perspective, there is some, obviously, in the biological constructs, we have DNA from our parents. So you're going to get that combo in some way, shape, or form. But the knowledge you're talking about, I think, is more from the previous iterations that you've accumulated.
I would look at that as, either reincarnated, if you will, accumulated knowledge over lifetimes. Perhaps there's some. I used to be a really big believer, puts it in a faith realm. That's not what I'm talking. I used to be a really big believer, for lack of a better word, in genetic memory. It's like Dave and I talked about this years ago. We would talk about having been in Scotland or Ireland or England, and there are certain things that draw you, not just because, I've got an interest in that. Yeah. Like Dave with his sword fighting, with his seamanship and things like that. There are those things that draw you because the genetic memory is there. Now, when we say genetic memory, aren't we saying, when we talk genetics, aren't we talking deoxyribonucleic acid? Aren't we talking DNA?
There's also RNA too. So, I mean,
RNA too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that just real quick on what you're saying there, it seems to me that, we have this term magnetism and this other term gravity, right? Well, magnetism is more correct, I think, I don't think gravity is gravity. I think gravity is magnetism. But because they both have the same characteristics, just a form of it that we haven't looked at in the right way. But Magnetism is what I think you're experiencing when you go somewhere and you're attracted to something. There is a
Right.
magnetic resonance that one of two things, or maybe both. One is you experienced it before, and it's something that has continued over in this iteration or over your iterations. But two, that it's just a natural, it in the way it resonates is the same. You're resonating with that big time. You don't have to have had that experience before. It's just a natural resonance. Magnetic attraction. Put it that
And
way.
you know what? I hate to say it, we got to kind of leave it there. It's 11 o'clock, and I don't know about you guys. What's that?
Crazy how time flies.
Crazy. 11 o'clock used to be so early, 30 years ago. And now 11 o'clock comes. I could sit and talk all night if I wanted to.
4 a.m. 4 a.m. 4 a.m.
I got so much to do. I've been up since 4 a.m. this morning. I got up at 4 a.m. to load up a trailer. And so I got more of that to do tomorrow. And so I'm going to take my leave of you. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, as they used to say at festival. Of course, I heard that in other places before festival.
I used to say that at the bar.
One of my favorite places, the Halftime Wreck. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Well, what do the band guys say? It's like, it's a good thing you came here because otherwise we'd all have to go to your house.
That's right. That's right. I got to just share a memory. One of my best memories of the Tim Malloys, Irish band up here. They played bloody Irish music, they'd call it. And they do their regular sets of Irish music. Then they have their IRA set. Armored cars and tanks and guns come to take away our sons. But everyone must stand behind the man behind the wire, and so, they had all the militant IRA songs, but they would always end their set for the night when the bar was closing. He would get out his little tin whistle and penny whistle, tin whistle, and he'd play the Irish national anthem, and everybody would stand up and put their fists in the air, quiet fists in the air. And I wish I had that to play right now. And I've heard the Irish national anthem being played. It's jaunty at times, but you can take a tune and make it jaunty and cheerful and jolly, and and you can take it and make it very melancholy and haunting. He did that with his tin whistle, where he'd drag the note out, on a tin whistle. It's like, whoa. But if you've never heard the Irish national anthem, see if you can look up the Tim Malloys. Tim Malloys playing the Irish national anthem for the close of their show. It's haunting. And for some reason, I wish I had that. I've got to get a copy of that. We should use that to close out this show every night. So, all right. Having said that, Sarah, thank you for being here, as always.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll talk to you soon. You have a good day tomorrow. I'm glad you had a epiphanous experience today. That's
awesome. Yeah, go marinate in that.
Yeah. Throw a little bubble bath in that and let her rock. Oh, she's already gone. All right. And Professor Bauer, thank you, brother, as always, for being here. Love you. Love having you here.
Well, I appreciate the space to go spew the few and flap my yap. So thank you very much.
Fun. I wish we could be. Yeah. We need to do a Joe Rogan show where we can all be like smoking a little weed and drinking a little weed.
I'm up for a scotch and skunk night. Yeah.
Speaking of drinking weed, Dave, I have not had Jeremiah.
I was just thinking that as soon as you said drinking the weed, I was like, oh, Jeremiah.
Jeremiah weed. The last Sunday morning of every festival season, the king would have the king's cordial cup, and we'd pass around the Jeremiah weed before opening gate. So in the morning, we were all drinking. So anyway, Have a good night, Professor.
Do the same. You guys have a great weekend and holiday.
And you too. Talk to you soon. Uncle Dave, love you, brother. If you're not doing anything, stop by this weekend. Just
Oh,
for
I
fun.
feel, I just got my back in shape, and the last thing I want to
You
do
don't
is
need to lift
a
anything.
box.
You don't need to lift nothing. But
But
if you feel like driving, come on
I
out and
can
see the new
lighten my
house.
wallet some, if that would help.
Yeah, lighten your wallet. That would help. Yeah, come on out and lighten your wallet. Buy the pizza or something.
Oh, I could happily do that.
No, I'd actually love to have you come out and just see the house, stuff like that. So,
all right, let me
know.
see
We'll
what I
talk
can
tomorrow.
do. All right,
brother.
Bye-bye.
Love you. Have a good night. All right, and folks, that's it. Everybody over there, Andrea, good night. Elderberry, good night. Steve Clark, Susie Q, Morgan Snow, Elderberry, I already said. Susie Q, I already said. Elizabeth Richardson, Sean Stroik, all of you over there. Matthew Sainsbury, he disappeared. He was in the wings waiting to come on at some point. I was going to bring him on and he was gone. So he must have fallen asleep. Roger Rabbit, good to see you. Glad you were in here tonight. And who else did I miss? Cordia, Spirit Heart Gods, good to see you. Jason Ashby. And who else have we got? Steve Clark, I think I mentioned. Those are all of you still hanging on. Norman Glasser, it was good to see you in the chat room tonight, brother. And everybody, if I missed you, it's only because I missed you, not because I omitted you. So I want to thank you all for being here. You all have a good night. And we will see you on Sunday morning with It's Sunday. Talk to you soon.